to episode 182 of Plat Chat Valorant. I'm joined by an all-star cast today because we had to kick Bala out. He was originally going to be on the episode, but instead, myself, Bren, and Sliggy are joined by Navi's own Doombros here. Thank you very much, Doombros, for filling in, and also thank you, Sliggy, for getting Doombros late notice as well when we didn't realize. But how are things, Doombros? You're still signed to Navi, so what have you been up to?
Honestly, quit esports, got a girlfriend, got a house, you know, living a life.
That was fast.
No. I've been taking it easy, been, finding myself traveling a little bit, tenting, hiking, doing all that stuff that is outside esports and kind of enjoying life from the outside. So, yeah.
God, that sounds pleasant. That sounds
super
nice.
pleasant, yeah.
Sliggy hasn't seen the outside. Never mind.
I was going to say, I'm just counting down the days to the off season. Maybe I get to go outside. Then.
I've been hanging out in your shadows, Sliggy. That's kind of what I've been doing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Honestly, it does kind of like I'm getting excited again for champs and like good games and that kind of stuff, but it does kind of feel like I see Ethan posting stuff like, "Oh, my year's over. It's July. It's so early." I'm like, "Time's ticking. Nearly September."
Yeah. I need this. Listen, I'm trying really hard not to curse. I'm ruining this 5 minutes in, but this season, I know they're gonna fix it next year. I know they're gonna spread it out, but 1 hour in a room, no police interference.
With who?
Who's
Just with who? I don't know. I don't know.
John Ryan.
Whoever put the season in. But also, it doesn't help that I'm like especially irritated because I got no sleep from playing the Elden Ring DLC too late last night, not being able to sleep properly. Also, I've got the Imagine Dragons Arcane song stuck in my head for the last 3 days. Just the oh, the misery. Every single person is my enemy. Like that shit has been.
We just got copyright strike.
I fucked it up. I fucked it up already. I fucked it up. That's
Demonetized. Copyright struck. It's
I know,
all
less
over.
than 5 minutes in, and I've already messed it up, man. But it's been stuck in my head for 3 days, man. 3 days. I've been waking up. I've been going to bed with like in my head, non-stop. And I've been saying it over and over and over again. And I've been streaming. I've been co-streaming. I've been watching the games. I've been streaming. I've just been saying it because it keeps popping into my head. And I just can't get it out of my head. It's just stuck there. And now I'm going to do Plat Chat. I've been living under a rock. Pacific, top-heavy teams. Every time I tune into a game, they're playing comps that don't make sense. Same in EMEA. Fnatic look good again because other teams are bad, I think. I don't know what the fuck they're doing with their comps. The VCT is... I don't like it right now. Actually, I do like the new patch that we're in. I like the map pool that we're in other than the Icebox. But I need...
Are you quite finished?
Yeah, I'm done.
Right, okay. So the toddler's had his temper tantrum, and now we can begin with the actual show. Well, it's a pity that you did demonetize us, but thankfully this episode is sponsored, so let's get into the sponsor. It's Factor again. So the warmer, sunnier days are calling, and you can fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. They're very good for being able to get meals there that you can easily pick up, heat up, eat. Much cheaper than getting takeout all the time as well, which I know you do. I know you do. I know you get takeout all the time because you're a dirty little gremlin gamer like me. And I know that I do that. So they're fresh, never frozen meals, ready to eat in just a couple of minutes. Tons of different options. And yeah, you can get them, heat them up, easy peasy. So if you go to factormeals.com/Valorant50 and use code Valorant50, very simple, to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month as well. So that's code Valorant50 at factormeals.com/Valorant50 to get 50% off the first box plus 20% off your next month while the subscription is active. Yay! We made some money and we didn't lose it all because Bren had a tantrum at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, 2 minutes in.
Whoopee! All right, let's get into some of the stuff, though, because we've actually got... The problem is, I can understand why Brent's feeling a bit, like, frazzled, because there's so much Valorant going on. We just came off the back of Super Week in Americas. That's why we didn't do an episode last week as well. And on top of that, Pacific, for whatever reason, is trying to speedrun the year. They're always a week ahead of everybody else. Don't know why. And EMEA still has a lot of important games in its final week. Thank God Americas doesn't. So let's get into Pacific first to start things, because Pacific at least has like the playoff bracket is ready. And the first team I wanted to start with here is Talon, who are in a really interesting spot. I don't know if you've seen the hints and the rumors, but I think I kind of want to start there because they already tweeted a Scooby-Doo image. The #1 ranked player right now in APAC is called Primmy, but plays under the name of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? And they were hinting Frost loves to talk about things that should be secret on his team. And he was hinting, we've got an X Factor for the playoffs. We got an X Factor.
Oh, so, the star player rumor?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that
do you
got
think
leaked
there's
to me
validity?
by an anonymous Twitch chatter, and they said, can you please leak that there's a star player coming in for Talon? And I said, sure, I'll agree with those rumors. What was it called when journalists they corroborate what they
Right.
I agree with this take. There's going to be a star player coming in for Talon. No information. I don't know. I don't know. I just told them that I would say it and agree to it.
Have any of you seen Primmy's ranked games? Because he's never played, as far as I can tell, a pro game that's been on stream.
No, I've looked at the stats. The stats are outrageous. Like the tracker, I know you're a fan of tracker. Sideshow, you're always
I
talking
love
about
the
it.
tracker.
But the stats are outrageous. Like fair play. It's a ranked team, and it could be yeah, it could be their version of Karen, basically. So we will see. It's a very bold time to bring it out. Single elim your whole year, and you just bring in a new player. That is one of the most mental things I've ever heard. So let's hope that his rank stats are as good as the actual pro play stats.
Who's the #1 on the EMEA ladder right now? Do either of you know?
I don't.
Oh, I don't know. I know the NAVI players was pretty high up, and there are some prospects in the ranked scene that I can't say because they're on my list. But I think it's actually a smart move to get some of these young talents in. Maybe not in a single limb or at this stage. It's kind of high risk, high reward move to make changes in the middle of a season, as we know. I support every crazy move, so I support it if the guy is insane.
Yeah.
If I saw those numbers in my rank games, which again, the only way I'm seeing those rank games is if they're a Radiant Smurf or they're cheating. Like, I don't know if you want to pull up the tracker again, but I'm seeing all the trademark, the textbook. Like, if I came up against this guy in my rank games, I'd be clicking the performance tab trying to track when the fuck this account was bought. Like, just like seeing when the hell they got into this. Like 43% average headshot rating. I'm like, okay, this guy's just they're just cheating. They're just actually cheating. I'd be looking at the performance, the top left, the third to the right at the top thing performance. Be going there, be going like, when did the improvements happen? When did this happen? No, they've just always been a crackhead, apparently. Okay. Yeah, they've just always been good. Yeah, sure. Talon are winning it all, apparently. I don't know. I have nothing else to add on to this other than the secret source coming in. I think this team is already in a spot as one of the weakest teams in the Pacific playoffs where a play like this, if your sole goal as the org is to trying to make playoffs, I don't think or to make champs, I don't think necessarily they would have made it in the current state. Even though there's 4 teams that do make it, actually, I suppose it's pretty high likelihood that you're in the bottom section of playoffs. But
you actually have to win the single elim game, and they don't have like championship
exactly,
points
yeah.
to fall back on. Okay, there's more drama though surrounding Talon because
I love that.
They lost to Zeta at the end of the season. Now their last couple of games haven't been that great. They didn't play that well against DRX, and then they didn't play very well against Zeta. But it was actually they didn't run a single timeout during the game against Zeta, and it was advantageous for them to lose the game against Zeta Division. A very rare situation in which it's actually a positive thing to throw the game because it guaranteed that they dodged Gen.G in the single elim portion of the playoffs. So all I'm saying is little tactical toss at the end of the year, which of course the team's not going to come out right and say, although fuck me, knowing Frost, he might just straight up say it on the next episode with Baby Day. He's like, yeah, we tossed that one, we threw it away, decided not to win it, didn't we? Like, he just can't shut up.
It's so true.
But yeah, there's a pretty strong chance here, I think, that they like deliberately soft played against Zeta.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it, and they at least hid it well enough that you could never be able to like do something about it. Like there was definitely a couple of rounds where I'm just sitting on stream, just being silent because I'm just like, that one didn't really feel right, but we'll ignore it. I do think like people were talking about their comps and stuff, but I think that this Ascent comp had been run before against DRX anyway, and so that
Went
wasn't...
9-0 up and nearly lost.
Yeah, but I mean their comp's just horrendous on Ascent. They run the no distance close, no they got the yeah, you would just lose to double Odin every single time. So this comp doesn't make much sense. So this one wasn't too bad, and Zeta are always good at this map. Yeah, even the map Vita wise, it's like you let Zeta have Ascent and Haven. Like they're the only two good maps that they're like actually proven good at. It's yeah, it's a little bit dodgy, but at the same time, it can just be one of those games where I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't agree with you at all, by the way. About
well,
the
don't
comp.
tell me you think this Ascent comp's good.
It's genius. It's
for
actually
God's
genius.
sake. Dude, don't go on, let's hear it.
Look. So basically, I think this comp is all about the Sage. I'm just looking at it now, so I don't forget about it. But basically, the Sage allows you basically to have a non-dasher duelist. Remember, the Sage was played in, I think when we played no duelist, Sage was really popular. So I just think it just allows you to play a Phoenix comp. It allows you to, because there's so many teams who try to make the Phoenix comps work, and it just never worked, right? Because you don't have that gap closer. But with Sage, it's actually one of my opinion. Okay, this is my opinion, but it's the strongest attacking agent on this map. That's just, you should average around like 9-10 rounds on attack easily with Sage.
That's crazy.
Where are you pulling this from? How is that? How is that happening? I mean, when you look at what Talon are doing with it over on B, they're just doing the wall up, wall up in B main. Like it's just
basically it's so strong against teams that like the Flood likes to play the rotations on defense, like to go from heaven and go into sites fast, because you can just slow orbit, you can wall over the smokes, you can just hold this area. So against teams like, I don't know, Fnatic, maybe DRX, I didn't watch it too closely, but I know DRX can also like to Flood or play retake and play the same style sometimes, maybe not now. But in theory, it's the Sage that is strong in this comp. The rest of the agents can just be, I mean, you could just switch out the Clove for Noman. You could switch the Phoenix for Jet if you want, but I just think for a one-time thing, the Sage is actually super strong, especially when you catch people off guard. But you need to have another comp. This can't be your main comp, but I'm just in love with Sage on this map, and it brings so much stuff that we usually don't see, right?
I did really like your version of the Sage comp back when you were playing like Sage Fade on this map and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it counters certain styles, and you can bring it out based on scouting, right? For certain moments, and it's actually something I mean, and now I'm on a podcast and saying it, but it's in my pocket, So
yeah, the one of my problems overall though with Talon is that they're playing unusual compositions. But also, it feels like their players are not comfortable on the agents they're playing sometimes, too. I'm watching Governor on Haven just hard feed on Neon a lot, where it feels like he's overzealous to take fights. I'm watching Ban in the newest patch on ISO, really not understand how to get value from that, playing it on Haven and Icebox, popping the shields far too early on the defense side, thinking that they still last for like 20 seconds instead of saving them as that exec util is coming through, or saving it for a retake setup. I mean, they were also like, Ban was whiffing inside of his ults and stuff when they were playing against DRX as well. But all of this to say that it's not like they have a superstar roster that couldn't, like, there is a gap here for some crackhead from ranked to potentially fill it. Yeah. I feel like you genuinely could make the argument there, because their players are not actually popping right now either.
That's what I was going to say. They maybe look so like some of their stuff looks disattached, probably because they've been playing with the Scooby-Doo guy for the past 2 weeks. Like, it all kind of makes sense a little bit.
But I'm confused because Primi isn't even in the contract database. So has this even been approved? Like, is he just leaking it and teasing it?
You got to do it 2 days before, I think, right? So.
When is the match?
I guess they got a couple of days. I guess they got like 24 hours or something. Actually.
It's 2 days and 17 hours from right now.
Wait, so they have to do
17 hours then.
Right, well, yeah, keep your eyes peeled. The countdown begins. Let's see where the Talon have actually got something crazy to go for. I'll tell you a team, though, that I'm very excited about. They're playing against Team Secret. I'm excited about Secret. I think that if they're going to get the win there against Team Secret, it's got to be off the back of like something unusual happening, some big explosive performances from a guy like that. Because Secret overall are looking real nice. I pulled out a bunch of plays from their win over Gen.G that I wanted to go through, some like set plays, because their sunset around Jesse Vash's Sova, actual old man grandpa Sova, is delivering them crazy good results over there on sunset. The APAC teams have been cooking with Sova on that map for ages. Back when other people were not really playing too much of it, they were coming up with wild lineup stuff all over the place. And then even now that Sova's being played more, I feel like I don't see as much of this. I mean, look at this on the pistol round. Munchkin has no idea what's going on and just bunny hopping over, runs into the recon dart by accident. But then if you look forwards into round 2, it's a very similar thing where they throw a lineup recon dart over to catch Meteor at B. And then there's always Sova utility that ends up catching Gen.G out in these kind of spots. But this was an important game for Secret to win, and it wasn't as important for Gen.G to win. So I was a little surprised at how much unique set stuff Team Secret were unveiling right before playoffs.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was for this game. It was like if they beat Gen.G, they avoid Gen.G for singular limb, right? So if they lost, they would have played Gen.G in singular limb. So it was like Gen.G didn't really matter too much for them. And I think a lot of the time, like these kind of games, it's to who wants it more. And yeah, they revealed like 5 new strats or so on this map, like especially some of their attack. Some of their aggro defensive strats were really cool. Within like the first 5 rounds, you're just seeing like new hits with new recons, and I'm like, damn, they are
17, 18, 19 were like really well coordinated defensive setups.
Yeah.
Like do you just want to run those, Kurt, while we talk? Because they're really impressive. Like every piece of it is so tight.
Yeah, good to see Gen.G wanting to like run their own stuff, and then there's just bodies in their face. There's just a recon on their face, and just this kind of running at them. And yeah, I liked it. They just forced Gen.G to play their own game on this map.
I mean, I watched a little bit of this game about an hour ago. So, but from my take of it, it didn't seem like both teams were on paper really comfortable with the map, but Team Secret came out with a new comp, and I think they picked it as well. And it seemed like Gen.G was kind of just playing the same comp they've always been playing, and a little bit of complacency maybe. And I think that gives you such an edge if you're Team Secret, right? Because you're coming in, you know what comp we're playing, what general strats we're gonna run, and you can kind of dictate the pace and have a ball in your court, so to say. So I think that could be a major thing here too, just to catching them off guard. That's like a really regular thing in our league as well, is where if a team likes a map or they play the same comp over and over, it's quite easy to come up with new stuff, come up with a new comp and new strats, and just be impressive like this. Plus, we have Jesse Vash. I don't know, this guy was, I think we played them last year in Brazil, and this guy was just owning us. Like he's as old as Angel, probably his brother or something. I don't know why he's so good, but he's the best player in the world sometimes. So, doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely looked like it.
I'm on my hater arc a little bit, but I felt like I felt maybe you guys can explain my thought process with this, but I haven't really been too impressed with the map pool depth of a lot of teams. I don't know if that's just because the maps are being swapped around a lot. We've got maps coming out for playoffs as well, but
maps
I don't know. When I watch a lot of the teams, it feels like the depth isn't there compared to. I always made a comparison to Champs last year, but then Champs was where we saw the best of the best, so it makes sense that they'd have really fleshed out map pools.
Yeah, and I feel like the map pool wasn't a problem in Shanghai as well. One of the issues is that Split is leaving. Breeze has already left. A lot of the teams like Gen.G clearly are not unveiling their best performances during the regular season here. So, yeah, I think it's a matter of Haven's fairly brand new. There aren't many teams in the world, actually, that look really good on Haven right now. And that was surprising to me because it's an old map, and I guess the meta has shifted. You can't just go back to running that Viper solo Sky comp anymore. But it is weird that, like, for example, Fnatic are just running away in EMEA by being good at Haven.
The way you play Haven hasn't changed. You still have to, like, either subtly take a lobby control by, like, pretending you're lurking or, You know,
there's actually a lot of IGLs that have never called on Haven. As weird as that sounds, but like a lot of the people who are new to the IGLing role have never called on Haven before.
were they born yesterday?
Well, if they started in this off season, then they've never done it.
It's one of those maps where like the rotates do take a little bit of time to get down, especially if like players don't have a natural understanding of it. There's like loads of smoke protocols when you're like playing after plant of like fighting C site if the smoke is still up, fighting back down towards C long if the smoke is dead. Like there's loads of little nuances that you have to just smash out practices and just be like, you guys have got this wrong. Like, you need to try and identify it, and none of these teams have enough time to do it.
Yeah.
So it's just it's new team syndrome, just with a lot of teams and just adding a map in, and like some teams would have been good in it. You change one person up in it, just
Abyss is just going to be insane. It's going to throw everything into chaos.
It's
Because
like
Abyss is more of a mental game. Like if you think that the other team's good at Abyss and you end up banning Abyss and then you unveil like you have to now play on what was your permaban, it's more of a mental game of chicken when it comes to playoffs.
What's the team process like, Eric? What's the team process if you're prepping for like a new map in playoffs?
I mean, it's straight up hell. I think it's
curl up in a ball, cry.
I think you just uninstall and go home. I mean, that's one of the most stressful things about being a coach, about being a team, is the constant changes, constant patches, not knowing which map is going to be in and out. I mean, it takes for a new map. It probably takes at least 4 or 5 weeks to actually get good at it. You know, just iterate over and over and over again, and then one meta becomes the meta, and then someone counters that, and it just goes through all this. You know, this map coming in like in the middle of the season is just gonna be, you know, if you're the worst team, you're gonna pick it because you think you can upset the better teams, and if you're the better teams, you're more likely to avoid it because, obviously you want to stick to the things you know most. And then for your second thing, by the way, I have a whole theory about the map pool and why people are so shit. Basically, it's usually like the whole of Valorant. Basically, you had all these default maps, and then you had maybe 2 maps that are kind of experimental. So back in the days, it was Fracture and Pearl. It was kind of the 2 maps that no one wants to play, and then you have the rest was kind of easy to play. You know, and the best teams in the world were the ones who could play both of the annoying maps good. You know, so for example, we could play Fracture and Pearl really good. We know we're gonna get one of those 2, and this time around, I think is. Like, in my opinion, is Sunset and Lotus. You know, if it sounds wrong, but for example, Heretics, they can be good at Lotus or Sunset, and you have to let through at least one of those maps to them, you know. And if they can play it better than anyone else, we're always going to have like an auto win on paper, right? But that's kind of how it works, where you kind of have to be good on 2 on the maps that people generally hate to be good, you know. And I just think the lack of normal default calm maps that doesn't require you to stay up at 5 a.m. as a coach every night, you know, to figure out is more healthier for the game.
It's also that even the standard-ish maps in the pool right now have massively different metas being run. You can play tons of different duelists. You can play double smokes or double initiator on pretty much any map that's in the pool. Things have not settled down to a point where you can do the classic Valorant strat of just kind of picking the meta and then copying the best stuff that you like from other teams. You've got to actually put your brain into figuring it out yourself, which is way more workload than before, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the main point that you touched on there, is just the fact that, because even when we played, like when Icebox first came out, we had like a comp, and then when we played against it was some Spanish team, we played against some Spanish team, and they pretty much showed us how to play Icebox with like the Sage plant and everything. It was like the first day it was out, and we were like, well, we can just copy this. And if you don't have those practices, you don't get that one game where someone's like worked it out, you're just wrecked. So yeah, it's just not enough time. It's crazy.
Before we move on to the predictions, I do just want to show one final round from the secret game against Gen.G. It's the one I've labeled Insane End, Kurt, if you could pull that one up. Just to show you guys that Secret didn't completely outclass Gen.G. You know, it still went to a third map, and this was probably the defining point in it, where we saw Envy with a judge on defense split.
Yeah,
it's absolutely gross what you're about to witness. By the way, this was coming off the back. The very previous round, they almost beefed an anti-eco, and they had to win like a 2v4 to be able to pull it out. And then they go into this 12-10, trying to rescue map point, and a 4K with the judge in that manner.
Dude, that's such a split moment.
Yeah,
Just-
it really was. They'd kind of planned into this a little bit though, because they've been shutting down B a lot, where they've just been like throwing a lot of util, and then Texture kept on like sending it in, and he's like out on his own because there's like a nade or a molly behind over towards B, so they couldn't do much. And they're like, well, we've got to force over towards middle. They took a ramp to then split over towards middle to beat the Viper, and then he's just there with a charge.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, it is disgusting. But they played really well. I'm impressed with Team Secret in general. The playoff, even though single limb sucks for the teams, my god, these games are gonna be unbelievable.
Let's
These
get
games
into
will
them
be
then.
so fun.
Let's have a look at the predictions. So we've got 2 opening single elimination games. The winners of one are going to go off and face PaperX. The winners of the other are going to go off and face DRX because of their better regular season records. So let's start with the one at the top of the bracket. Winner faces PaperX. It's Gen.G playing against RRQ.
Surely someone.
Oh,
I was hoping someone would.
I feel like there might be some. No, I'm actually not even gonna say it, man. The RRQ, I thought they looked all right in the game against PaperX. They had like a very solid game to them, but I think Gen.G are just gonna turn up here. And honestly, even if Gen.G lose, they're still probably making champs. So
The champ points.
yeah, but I think they'll still
Yeah.
want to win just to keep it in their hands.
Can
So I don't think they're
I
gonna
say
take it
something?
easy.
I read somewhere
Yes.
that if Gen.G loses this and then PaperX lose both their games, Gen.G is
Yeah.
out of champs.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
correct.
But that's the only way that they're
Yeah.
out. So even
Yeah.
if Gen.G lose this game, they're probably still making champs unless PaperX bomb out, which would be crazy. So, you know,
Yeah,
it's
I'm looking at
they're
this game,
almost
and
guaranteed.
Gen.G fooled me for Shanghai because they did this thing where they kind of just chilled out a little bit and split one, and I was like, oh, maybe they're suffering a bit from like coming back from Madrid. And then they just went to Shanghai, and everyone's just started popping. They looked incredible. They had some new strats. Everyone's just actually swinging together. They're just one-shotting everyone. So they always have this extra gear. And after I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm not going to be fooled by them kind of like chilling a little bit in Split 2. I think they're just going to show up like they did in Shanghai here. But I will say RRQ have been looking all right. So there is a chance, but I can't back it after what I saw in Shanghai.
I mean, I picked Gen.G just because, confidently picked them because they had a little bit more green in their match history on VLR. So,
Okay.
and also, I didn't really know that it's standard for Rex Regum Quayon. So,
That's so honest of you. I'm not
yeah,
gonna lie.
but I mean,
those are the best Preds.
RRQ seemed to be like, I think it was last season they weren't too good, and now they're kind of coming back. So
They were one of the better teams. They were like
they
one of
were?
the better mid-table teams last
Yeah,
year.
they were like
okay,
Yeah,
then,
mid-table though.
but I
But-
picked
but-
Gen.G
but-
because Gen.G, yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt that. I mean, the thing is with single limb, I feel like anything can happen, and again, it's, dude, I keep the thing that keeps rattling around my tiny little peanut brain is the abyss coming into playoffs and how much that can just throw uncertainty into the mix. Because the amount of times we saw a new map come in, like I'm pretty sure Fracture came in for champs one of the years. Was it 2021?
What the hell?
When the hell? What is? This is the new
Oh,
map,
it's Blood
Abyss.
Gulch, no?
That's the new map, Abyss.
This is the new map, Abyss, that's being played. Thank you, Kurt.
You should have picked an indoor one.
Such a
There was
good game.
a lot of teams that ended up picking the new map as their map pick. It's happened throughout VC, like just Valorant, throughout, and they get diffed by a team that has the better read on it.
Okay,
without realizing it, thinking that they had the better look on it. I don't know if that's going to happen here, but I look at single limb, I look at playoffs, and then I look at everything that's happened, especially with the meta switch up, where teams still haven't properly even adapted to the sky changes. Some of the teams, I don't know if we'll see the case that's the teams in playoffs are like that, but
Sorry, is Abyss in the playoffs?
Yes.
For real?
Yes.
Yeah. You dodged that one.
that's why I was bringing it up.
I'm glad I'm sitting at home, I guess. All right.
Yeah. But also, I don't think it'll matter for this game. I understand the like trepidation though, because I think when it comes to champs and we're talking about Gen.G, assuming they make it, then we do need to start having a discussion about the fact that the map pool has removed Breeze, where they were probably best in the world, removed Split, where they were arguably best in the world, and now has just introduced a random roll the dice kind of map where we have no idea. Like their map pool could not have been more heavily nerfed. I do want to ask you a question though. If you're sat where PaperX are sat right now, and Gen.G do lose this game, do you deliberately throw so that Gen.G can't make champs?
I mean, I this is one of those topics I can't talk completely. But let's just say I've been in situations like that before, you know. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
They can do what they want, you know. It's a free world, you know.
I think they won't just purely because it's inferior matters for seedings, right?
Right.
10 points get you fourth, so you wanna focus on champs. You wanna try best in champs. It would be tempting. it would be pretty tempting.
The problem is, at the moment you don't know who's good, but when it gets to the end and then you get put in a group with like the EMEA winner, the America's second place, and you're like, well,
at least Gen.G are here, guys. You can't even play the system to try and get into a good group. Even like, I don't know. There's been teams that have won and came out first seed, and they've been playing against some very strong teams before.
It is randomized. Like they put first seed into each different bracket, but to be honest with you, the first seeds are not built the same either. I'll take the first seed from China every single time.
Have they released the format? It's just the same as the previous years, where it's
I mean, we think so, right? Because they said it's not Swiss, so I'm thinking it's just the same as before.
They also said there was no buys to the playoffs, as far as I'm aware.
Yes,
so.
they said that as well. So I guess it's just the same as always.
All right, let's move on to the next game, though. We spent a while talking about that one, but I think it deserved it. Let's move on to the next single elimination game, which we've already discussed a bit. It is Team Secret playing against Talon.
The banners are crazy, by the way.
Oh, boy.
Ooh. Now, this one, are we feeling guarantee? Is that a guarantee?
I didn't know about Scooby-Doo. I'll put that out there straight away. When we get this wrong, I had no idea about Scooby-Doo. I didn't understand. I didn't know about his game. But I'm still all right with this one. I just think Team Secret playing good. So I think it's so crazy getting a new guy in for a singular limb your whole year. It's so
whole year
mental.
Resting on a player that has very little pro experience.
Yeah, he has to be unbelievable.
Because I was watching his ranked games, and to me, he looks very similar to like a something. Super fast decision making, really fast awareness of where people are going to peek him from. Very, very good aim. Tends to like one tap and tap aim a lot. But even a player as good as something had much more tier 2 experience than Primi does. And something actually struggled, and still does, I think, with nerves in big matches. And you don't really get much bigger than this. So just because the guy's cracked and could be an amazing player in the future doesn't mean you can just slot him in and get like 100% out of him day one. If you did, that would be nuts. Like if he does do that,
it'd be really
holy
cool.
shit.
Yeah.
These ranked players are different though these days. I mean, you bring up the something argument, but Caron got brought up very much just straight up from ranked, and there's something about this new generation of ranked players where they've just been shitting on the pro players in ranked, and they don't care. They will just do it on. They'll do it on the stage anyway. I don't know. This is such a wild card, man. It's such a Frost thing to do, isn't it? It really is. It's just.
It is pure humiliation kink, isn't it? I'm gonna bench you because you got to playoffs. You get to playoffs, and he's gonna bench a player to put in someone from ranked. I mean, whoever sat on the bench is just.
I respect it though if he thinks it's the best chance to win as well. And like I said, I don't think Talon in their current iteration are a team that could go deep in champs, and I don't think they're a team that could potentially even make champs at the moment. It's still like up in the air in terms of the teams that they're up against, right? But yeah, if he feels like this is the thing they need, could work out. You never know.
I mean, for me, I always respect coaches that are willing to take like these huge risks.
Yeah.
Like your only objective is to like qualify and to win. And if you recognize, okay, we might qualify for playoffs, we might do semi-decent, but that's not enough. Like we want to win it all, and taking a huge risk can actually be beneficial. But on the contrary, usually taking in a new player, the game is very different from both like ranked and both scrims. And when you're actually on stage, it's just everyone plays so much slower. There's so much more pressure. So usually it takes, I don't know, maybe 2-3 weeks before these players start hitting. But you have this once in a blue moon where you just bring in a player and they just dominate. They get the adrenaline going. They're just doesn't feel anything, and we just take over the whole game. So I don't know. I respect that move. You know, making these big decisions and thinking that can get over the hump and actually, and maybe not the hump, but actually get them to like all the way to the top, right?
Yeah. Okay, so we've had a look at the predictions. We're all unanimously going for Gen.G and Team Secret. So let's predict the rest of the bracket then. Because if we got that far, and I would agree that those are like the odds-on favorites, but to me, the like actual odds-on favorites kind of melt away into a muddy puddle after that, really. Because I couldn't tell you who I think the favorite even is in Paper X Gen.G right now, or really Secret DRX. So where are you falling? Let's start with the top of the bracket, Paper X Gen.G. How much do you believe in Gen.G kind of playing better in playoffs? I suppose maybe this just comes down to.
This is a hard one. I think the only thing I would put it down to is, hold up, I'm talking myself out. Okay, do you know what? I was gonna say Gen.G, but then I had just like 1 second thought. Because Paper X had kind of leaked on stream that they were playing Abyss, so maybe the maps will favor them a little bit. I was about to say I favor Gen.G because of the map pool, but honestly, taking Split out, which Paper X have already been banning, they're planning ahead for like this moment. I would say that maybe I will go with Paper X, but
You think so? Paper X map pool has been a massive problem. They've only really looked good on Split and Sunset at the tier 1 level, and then their Lotus has been all right, and their Icebox has been all right. And I feel like their Lotus and Icebox are good enough to get wins in Pacific, but I don't know if that's going to carry over into the game against Gen.G.
So they don't have to ban Split anymore, which means they would ban Ascent because they suck at Ascent. And then it's pretty much open, I feel like. 'Cause that would have been like the perma loss for me. That would have been them being a map down.
Bind is fairly perma loss against Gen.G as well, isn't it? Maybe not, but I think it is.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
not
Gen.G
as
don't
much
have a
as
perma
Ascent,
ban
but-
either, right?
I mean, I have a good point.
Well, that's what you're here for.
Yeah, no. I think just because I'm not the most having the most insight in these teams, but just looking at it, it seems like Paper Rex are a little bit willing to play more crazy comps, maybe play different agents that isn't really the meta. And when I look at Gen.G, I get the same vibes that when Fnatic were winning it all, you're kind of just keeping it kind of rigid and the same on a lot of the maps.
Yeah.
But I think meta changes and map changes kind of favor the teams that are willing to go outside of the box, willing to experiment, willing to play different comps or out of the meta agents. So if the maps really are changing, if that is actually real news, then I kind of think it favors a team like PRX a little bit more, because I feel like Gen.G kind of needs maybe a little bit more preparation time to actually make things and all the protocols work. But that's just my feeling from watching the pictures on VLR, and not actually having to watch all their games. But I kind of get that feeling sometimes that when the meta switches up, it kind of favors the NAVIs, the Heretics, the PRXs, and stuff like this.
Yeah. I would agree with the Abyss stuff, but it's so difficult to know what Gen.G have been cooking while they've been... Because I think they've been taking their foot off the gas during these last few games. So I think they've been in the lab. They just haven't been showing it. But do I know that? No, I'm just kind of... That's the vibe that I get.
That makes sense.
But I do just want to start locking some Preds in here.
I'll go with Gen.G just for the narrative.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm down to be influenced. I think Gen.G's fine because in my head it goes. It's like Paper X win, Sunset, Gen.G win, Bind, third map, probably Icebox, and it's 50-50. So I'll be swayed by anything.
Okay.
Gen.G.
I feel PRX, but I trust Liggy.
Yeah. Okay.
Hold on,
right.
I'm going with Brent.
I mean, listen, I'm going on vibes. I don't.
Everything is coming back to the vibes then. All right, we'll go with Gen.G. DRX Secret then. How are you feeling about this? Personally, I feel like Secret are playing a better game right now, but I was liking the way that DRX played on Icebox. I felt like their Icebox looked pretty good. And I'm not convinced in the map pool for Secret, so I could still see DRX winning this game. by getting a good map for them like Icebox into the pool, and then maybe winning on like a Haven where both teams haven't shown too much. So
yeah, I think that Icebox is really hard to play against at the moment. The Clove smoke, no one can hold a site. Everyone has to like fight them earlier, and no one's good enough at fighting earlier. These games are so close. I would probably lean a little bit more to Team Secret just because I don't think I've seen consistently enough from DRX. That's basically where I'm at. So I would probably go for Secret on this one, even though DRX look a little bit better in the last 2 weeks than maybe
I was going to ask if they improved a lot because I haven't watched DRX in weeks.
They definitely
I don't know.
improved. I wouldn't say a lot, but they've improved.
yeah, I mean, I think they've been carried mostly by the fact that their Icebox looks really good. And then they're like muddling through on some of the other maps. They crushed Detonation on Haven, but I wasn't a big fan of how DRX were actually playing Haven when I watched them play against Talon. It was better than they were, though. They looked like they copied a bunch of stuff from NRG. They were running NRG's C-exec from like last year. But without a second wave of pushing back site. So they just used all of their util to take front site, and then they were just like, they had no protocol to push back site. Anyway, they look okay. I'm going to go with Secret
then.
as well, though. All right. Well, then you're the decider, Doom Bros. What do you reckon?
I believe in Jesse. I pick Secret.
Okay, let's go with Secret. So that sets us up for Paper X DRX down at the bottom. I mean,
Paper
that is
X.
a classic, but yeah, I think you've got to go for Paper X, right? With how they're playing at the moment. Gen.G, Team Secret up in the uppers. If they've beaten Paper X, surely they're going to win that one. Let's go with Gen.G. And Team Secret have a weirdly really good head-to-head against Paper X. They've beaten them quite a lot of times. Jesse's got the read on how Paper X play.
Oh, that's true. Is this best of 5 or best of 3?
Great question. That is a great
Hold on,
question.
I can check. You guys keep
Lower
going.
final is BO5.
Best of 5. Okay, then not even sure what that helps me, to be honest. I think I'd maybe even go for Team Secret after that.
Are you because you're thinking the Paper X map pool isn't that great, but do you know that the Secret map pool is good?
I mean, they've looked good since Wild Oreos come in. So they're on quite a few maps. Maybe haven't been like fully tested, but I think I have more confidence in their map pool than Paper X. But it's also Paper X, man. No rules apply. Put them through. And we're thinking too much about Paper X, man. They're just gonna bang them out, aren't they? Probably.
You're down with that?
I'm done with that.
Paper X Gen.G finals
take
again.
the wheel.
Take the wheel. All
Take
right.
the wheel.
And then who do you go for at the end here? I like Predin the other way around compared to the previous one, but to be honest, I think Gen.G is going to win. So I don't know.
No, I think Paper X will win this one, just because I feel like always in the grand final, if you're the lower seed, you win.
Yeah, it would be great for Paper X to win the BO5 grand final here and then still not win a BO5 at Champs. That would be,
that's true.
that would be
Sounds
huge.
too perfect. I'm in for it.
Go on then, lock it in. It all gets very silly once you get to the end of the bracket anyway. Who the hell knows? Like, so many of those Preds would just be based on how they played earlier on. Okay, let's move on to talking about EMEA then. Because, okay, Doom Bros, I know you're signed to NAVI right now, so you can't spill all the tea, but my God, there is tea to be spilled by the look of it. So you just weigh in where you can weigh in, but
Yeah,
but
I'm the whole thing.
Listen, I'm still gonna ask you the questions. You're gonna have to decline to answer if you can't answer.
All right. Okay.
Because I felt bad doing it, but I had to title this topic. Navi looks dead in the water because they lost 0-2 to Koi. It didn't look good, and a lot of people are talking about here's where I want to begin, actually. I've found a good starting place. A lot of people online are basically saying, if you remove the coach, you are going to lose. And I feel like it's probably correct. I've not asked you, but it's probably correct that that's more of a symptom of something going very wrong already than everything was perfectly fine. Doom Bros gets kicked. Suddenly, everything goes to shit. Like you were the glue holding everything together. Do you think you leaving is the direct consequence that caused, that has begun the downward spiral for Navi?
I mean, no comment for that one. But I mean, I can just speak a little bit. I think everyone knows our 2023 and 24 wasn't the best in terms of what we could achieve before. So I think we were always kind of tipping on the edge of, being really good and sometimes not being really good. And that's kind of all I can say. But we have been on this edge for quite a while. So yeah, and
I mean,
that's it.
I always thought your team
Okay.
looked good, like for
Yeah.
stage 1, and
Stage 1, yeah.
you just kind of got fucked by the format to a degree. Like,
It's a weird one because I mean the format is what it is, and I had to credit. Actually, I want to credit Heretics here because both times we played them, like I have a saying, but we usually do this to other teams where like this game is very scouting oriented. Like some people think not, but it actually is. The more information you can give to IGL, the more information you have, the easier it is to play. Even if you're not using the stuff. And what Heretics did against us both times is took us on 4 maps where they played a completely new comp on both times. Which we had 0 scouting, and that's a conscious decision from them, and it kind of made it hard for us to play. So hats off to them. Because I know how hard it is when you're in the agent select on stage and suddenly all your game plans and everything like this is kind of looking weaker, right? You have to adapt on the fly. So I think that in combination with it being single limb kind of made it for the perfect storm for us to get eliminated. But I still think to this day we are a strong team. So I think once we get up on the horse and we start winning some maps, things can turn around.
I still felt fairly good about Navi in stage 2 because I assumed that the atmosphere within the team would be like using the format as a scapegoat, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have a really bad result, you can choose to, blame yourself, or you can put the blame externally to try to keep the ego intact. And I assumed that the team would be like, fuck this format. We were still a top 3 team. Like, we only lost to the bloody nearly winners of Masters Shanghai. We're about to come back into stage 2 and destroy everybody. But from what's been going on in like interview pieces that have been coming out and the general atmosphere, it seems like, I mean, Sugetsu outright said it in an interview with Pedro Romero that the second loss to Heretics, I broke something within the team.
No comment.
Which that surprises me because it feels like something that should be easy to shrug off.
Yeah,
because of the format.
It's true. And didn't Angel also tweet something about like any of us would bench ourselves if we could at the moment? So like that shows that the vibes are definitely down. I think like the main thing that I just see from in-game stuff is like the discipline's gone. Like when I used to think of Navi and Kakuki used to bring up a stat that was like, you guys, once you win the pistol, you always convert the eco rounds, like against the ecos, and then you had 80% win rate on that 3rd round. But now when I see them, it's win the pistol and then lose the eco because people just aren't disciplined enough. I think this is it. Most of us would bench themselves if they could. That's crazy.
Yeah,
like mid tournament. So that shows that like they're very, very demoralized, I guess, from, well, at least what I would say from the outside, from the choice of getting rid of.
It's actually like in terms of tweets, I think Angel has a good pinned tweet on his profile on X, which honestly I looked at a lot of times. Yeah, and this kind of helped me because I can sympathize with. We're competitors, and when you lose, it kind of feels like not like you're dying, but it's a very traumatic experience for everyone because we're such competitors, and this kind of where this quote comes in. And for me, I just hope the team also sees this one because it's really important.
Yeah. I mean, Sugetsu in the interview as well with Pedro Romero, for anyone who didn't catch it, it's worth listening to. It starts out with Sugetsu really seeming like he doesn't want to talk about stuff, and then he opens up more. Basically, Pedro just straight up asks him like the same question 5 times in a row, rewording it slightly, and eventually Sugetsu just cracks. He just cracks, and he's like, he starts revealing more and more about what's going on while still trying to keep things professional, obviously, but he was saying that Navi previously had a psychologist. They don't have one anymore. And his opinion was that it would have helped them a lot with the internal issues that they're having within the team. He said that it's primarily, from his perspective, a mental issue as well, with how people are like trusting each other and yeah, dealing with the results. And he also seemed frustrated, Sugetsu, that there was no system apparently to like deal with the communication gap. I'm reading between the lines here. This isn't overtly what he said, but he said like nobody talked after the loss to Koi. We might not talk about it tonight. Who knows? And like when you don't have one of the things to implementing a good team, in my opinion, is implement one of the things that I think Karmine Corp and Fnatic have done really, really well in EMEA is implement a system where people feel empowered to come together and talk to each other, and it's like a natural thing. And you do it when you win, but you also do it when you lose. You don't make it awkward when you get together after a loss because it feels like you're having a big sit-down chat and like breaking up with your, with your partner or whatever. You already have those processes in place, and it feels like a bit of a communication.
I think one good thing generally to do as a team is to treat the debriefing after matches the same, winning or losing, right? I think that's one of the big strengths a lot of teams are doing is like, no matter if you win or lose, I think your debriefing and your system should be the same, just to kind of take off that emotional level of the results and just approach it in a less emotional and more structured way. I think that's just a huge benefit to have. I leave it at that.
Completely without context, without saying that it's relevant in any way. Just it's good.
Yeah.
They still actually have a chance to make the playoffs if they win against Gentle Mates.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm not saying this is a replacement for a team psychologist, someone to lift the spirits up. But if I was a Navi fan, I'd be printing out a Liquipedia page and circling the 4 and 5 and the fact that no team has locked it in, and then sending it to all the players' homes, and then laminating it and sticking it to the wall with just circling it and just saying, you still have a chance, don't give up. And because it's honestly, if from the outside in, it looks like this mental blockage that's occurring where it feels like everything's crumbling around the team and it's slipping away from them and it's almost like they've given up already. You need a very holistic, zoomed out perspective. And it's very difficult when you're a pro player going from game to game to game to game, and you're just slipping all the time to have that. And so you just need to, you kind of need to be banged over the head, I think, with that perspective of like, look, this is stage 1, stage 2. We've done enough. The whole season has to be taken into account. And you know that you're one of the best teams in the world. You know that you can play like it. You were going toe-to-toe with some of the teams that went the deepest at the international events. You can still win. You can still make the event. And it feels like they've lost sight of that somewhere. I don't know if, I mean, Eric, you're probably going to agree with me hard at this.
It's I told myself this week is like, let's say if I were an aspiring pro player or was playing ranked, and someone just told me, hey, I'm gonna put you in this league. You're gonna be 1 match away from playoffs. You're gonna be 4 and 5, whatever. But you're gonna have chance to qualify for a champions. I'm just gonna put you there, just straight up. I would be super happy and like, wow, okay, I get a chance to qualify for this. I'm gonna get in, all this, and that's kind of the point you had, where it sometimes can be hard to realize the situation you're in the moment by everything that happened in the past, right? And I think at some point you need to distance yourself and think, oh, we're actually in a great situation, I mean, in this great team with all these great players. We have the skill to win, and we actually have a decent chance on qualifying, right? So just being able to put you outside of that situation and bring you back in is a really powerful tool.
Yeah. To go through some of the things that need to happen, got to win against General Mates. Karmine Corp and then Team Liquid could both lose, which is super possible. They play against Fnatic and Vitality. Or Navi also have the head-to-head tiebreaker because they've beaten Karmine Corp, Vitality, and Liquid this season. So if there's any two-way ties at all at 5 and 5, Na'Vi would win them. So it's really, really possible. It is best if Team Liquid lose to Fnatic. That does make things better, but also that seems quite likely that Team Liquid will lose to Fnatic. So things are very much still up in the air. But I do want to move on from talking about Na'Vi to talking about Karmine Corp and Liquid. Yeah, we'll give you a bit of a rest. You can talk about some of your former opposition. Karmine Corp fumbled what could have been a really nice, like, solid spot looking towards the playoffs in a game against Liquid this week that was pretty tragic from them. Some dreadful anti-ecos. If you wanted to bring up Na'Vi failing to convert the pistol, there were tons of them in this bind game that Karmine Corp beefed.
Yeah, it was, so, I mean, bind should have been theirs. Like, realistically, bind should have been theirs. It's what you said. It's just so many rounds where, like, they just messed up the ecos. Or like, just, they just take, like, unnecessary risks. It would just be like a Euro up close that should literally get like a one and done, or it's just playing up close with a gun against ecos when you're like, and then still dueling out instead of taking the TP. There was this one where Liquid just got pretty proactive. They kept on losing this duel over towards Sand like twice. I think they did the same eco and it nearly converted 2 rounds. It definitely converted the first one on this. And yeah, I mean, they got ecoed at least 3 times. It might have been 4 times, but they're just taking so many risks. There was one time where they like they Liquid showed presence over towards Hookah, and then they just went in one person with a gun to clear it. And it's just like, why are we taking all of these crazy risks?
What is the call here to go back and re-clear the eco?
Oh yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Oh my god.
I saw this, and for me, it's classic KC. It's always been we're going for the kills and kind of forgetting about the objective of a round. You know, we might have a bomb planted, but we're still going for the kills, even though we might have a really good after plant setup, or it's eco, and all you need to do is plant and hold on range, and we're still going for the kills. You know, or even being solo and taking solo fights. But I feel like that's kind of been sometimes the identity of this team is like really good set strats and set setups, but when it comes to the mid round of individual decisions, we're kind of just going for that extra ult point.
Yeah, I mean, this was the round here where he went to go clear Hookah, and it's just like, why are we doing this? Why are we giving the guns to them? There's so many crazy stuff. I also think if we're just looking bigger picture on K-Corp, I think it's a team that at least I've been critical in the past of not being able to like mid-round well. I don't know in a meta where you can heavy lean on like double initiator, some kind of flash with a gecko, and you don't have to have the best calling ever. You can kind of just pop together, and it's like a good exec, and you can have, like in this meta right now, you don't have to be the smartest caller. As long as you can frag heavy and just make some kind of call, and you execute the double flash as well. And K-Corp are leaning heavy into like a harbor, which isn't great on defense. You kind of have to manipulate a lot of like the rotates to get aggro. You have to take map control, and it relies on a good caller. I don't know why in this meta right here, where they don't lean, they're like leaning into their weakness, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think they could just make it so much easier and just have a gecko +1 flash or something, and just absolutely send it when they get close. And Magnum can just go, yeah, this feels good, and just pop. It doesn't have to think about the whole overall picture.
If they want to fight super, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you go.
I was like, if they want to fight super hard, then why are they playing into these comps? I thought the exact same thing when I was watching Karmine Corp. I'm really worried about this team. I think in terms of their map pool. The depth of it, because just from watching the Fnatic game as well, their Lotus comp, I don't know what the hell they were doing with their Lotus
What
comp.
was that?
I genuinely, I mean, I know it was a while ago now, but I don't think we talked about it because we didn't run an episode last week. But
no.
Yeah, and Haven as well, they are playing the older Haven comp that I thought was going to be more meta, which is the double smokes when you're running the Viper Harbor, but they've mixed in a bunch of extra elements because they're running like the Yoru and the Gecko, trying to like flex in these things. But when you're running this comp, the strength of it really came from like being able to stall out post plants and hold into post plants. 1, getting into the post plants really easily, and then 2, being able to stall them out with mollies and the one ways and just all of that stalling capabilities. And it's been nerfed now with the Viper nerfs. It's not as good anymore. It's not even like, even with the fuel nerfs, you can't even lurk as effectively. You can't work the map as effectively. And the mid-rounding was never even a strong point in the first place. You're not playing a comp that's...
They also never took A lobby control at any point. I mean, Fnatic just dominated A lobby. It was like they didn't understand that if they lost A long, they were just screwed. They had nowhere on the map to be able to go. I think a lot of it comes down to Magnum not reading these situations well when he's inside the game. Unfortunately.
I mean, I could give you a little bit of insight on KC because obviously I played them, I scouted them, and they've always been a team. I feel like we rely on Eng a lot, but when you have a long break and they come in super prepared and they have these set strats, they're a really good team. But when you look at it deeply, they usually just recycle maybe the same five rounds over and over again on certain maps. So once they get figured out, they have a really hard time just adapting and changing up their style because they have these rounds sometimes just from the beginning that we're just doing, right? And either it works or it doesn't work. It was especially here on Bind, they did their B hit like 3-4 times. They had like specific
nuts.
Yeah, but it's basically what I'm trying to say is I just feel like we lack this like mid-round adaptation, being able to change calls, being able to and this in short is you're playing against an Astra. I'm not gonna get angry because I'm the nice guy here, but you're playing against the Astra, and I'm not the biggest fan of Astra because of how easy it is to bait out the utility, bait out the stars, and you have like limited smokes. But I didn't see anything of that from KC, you know, baiting out the utility in a good way and like opening up these choke points to actually abuse them. It was kind of just, throwing a dice. Are we gonna use strat 1, 2, 3, or 4? And that's it. And that's kind of always what I lacked for KC. So I hope they get a little bit more depth and, maybe a little bit more freedom. I'm not sure what's going on, but for me, that's always been their weakness. It's just how, not readable, I don't want to be toxic, not readable, but like once they get figured out in the game, it's kind of hard for them to just cook up something new on the fly.
Yeah, readable. That's fine. That's no. I think it's very accurate analysis as well. So amazing result for Liquid as well, by the way. I mean, really useful for them. Yeah. But it's part of this weird middle of the pack. There might be a tie at 4 and 6 for playoffs, like negative win rate teams ending up making it into playoffs in EMEA. BBL can still make playoffs, which is crazy because if you have a massive tie, their map win rate is BBL still can make playoffs. If Karmine Corp beat Vitality, but Team Liquid and Na'Vi lose, then they would have the head-to-head win rate advantage against both of those teams, against Team Liquid and Na'Vi. So BBL would go through on head-to-head win rates against Na'Vi and Liquid at a 4 and 6 -3, which is nuts. So EMEA's got a bonkers final week coming up. And I think, let's just fire straight into the predictions of what we think is more likely to happen. So we've got Fnatic playing against Liquid. El Clasico, but it's not quite as good as it was in previous years.
Oh boy.
And everyone's going for Fnatic. Is there a reason to want, or not want, but is there a reason to think that Liquid have a possibility here?
Yeah, 100%. I think okay, I'm gonna try not to be toxic again. So basically for me, Fnatic always been that stale team who they have good strats, but they rely a lot on, it's gonna sound so bad, they rely a lot on the individuals, like contacting, getting the frags, winning the clutches and stuff like this, and kind of having fairly mild strategies and really set protocols to always react the same on everything that's happening. And I think that's kind of was their downfall in a sense, because they get figured out also. But now they have the hero, like the new guy, right? And for me, like I would predict Liquid, but now they have a new player, and I'm actually predicting Fnatic because I think it might bring in a little bit of change into Fnatic and a little bit of unpredictability that they need, and it's good for them. So I watched a little bit, and I'm not convinced, but I just think that as soon as Fnatic starts, bringing up these new comps like the Haven comp starts, now they don't have Leo, which is arguably the best player in the world, but at least they're such a good team that having a different player and a different dynamic can actually make the difference of them being a little bit more more free flowing. So that's why I'm going with Fnatic.
I
Makes
think
sense.
that's fair. I'm just kind of like looking at the map pool. From what I saw from Liquid, Sunset looks like their best map. They're using like the old school Paper X comp, and
Yeah.
Fnatic banned Sunset. So it's like you lost your best
G.
map, probably the main thing. And when I just look head to head in most of the maps, I just favor Fnatic on pretty much most of them. So it's that's why I'm siding with them.
I think as well you said they kind of lean on the individuals a lot to bail them out of some rounds, right? But which I would agree with, right? That's kind of what you get with a super team, that you can lean on that firepower sometimes. But I think Boast has been calling an insane game recently. I don't know if you guys would agree with that in terms of there's things that have been going missing with the defensive setups and stuff, but that's more of a result of them putting, I think, Hero into the system and having, it's always difficult, I think, especially when he's been playing the Cypher for them, that's the first thing you need to call when you're like adjusting your defensive setups like every round that needs to change. And if you've got a player who's new onto the role, they might be late with setups and there might be gaps that they leave in, or they just might not have thought about it as much. So I was seeing evidence of that. But in terms of what, the adaptations that were being called and Fnatic's decision making, which I'm assuming is mainly coming from Boaster and a little bit of everybody else, of course, not just a one-man show. But I was really impressed. I thought that the adaptations and the right calls and the reactions were always appropriate, despite the fact that they didn't have all the perfect information that we have when we're watching the game. They looked really strong in that regard, which gives me a lot of faith because, if the individuals are still hitting as well, and Haven is a map that really suits Fnatic too, I feel like, in terms of the way that they want to call.
Don't know what comp they're going to be running.
Sorry.
No, sorry, go on.
I just want to give props to Boaster. Like, people like to clown on him, but he's actually one of the greatest IGLs in the scene. Like the style Fnatic is playing, it might look simplistic, like for me or for others, but it's actually so hard to get to that level and so hard to be on the same page, because I watched the Lotus game with a new player, and it looked like if Hero had played in the team for 2 years, and that's so insanely impressive, because getting 5 players to be on the same page like that is a really hard task. So, hats off to Boaster and to the coaching team. It's never easy playing against Fnatic. I can say that we're pretty static and they kind of have the same reaction and stuff. And that's after you spend 2 full days of watching them intensely and hoping that they do the same. And if they switch things up, you're kind of your F word. So I don't want to curse. It's a family friendly show, but
Famously,
I've
ruined
it already, man.
Yeah, but for me, Boaster is, he has a bright future. Like, I almost said he's a young new talent coming into scene. He's not. It's really he's old. He's been here a long time. But for me, it's just really impressive how they can just switch out Leo and still be that good and be that consistent. So hats off to them. Like, they found their style. A lot of teams are copying them, and that must mean something, right?
I think that's something that they've done historically as well, right? Remember that period where they would just kick in one, getting a new player in, and they had like a honeymoon period for like a year. It's something that they've consistently consistently been able to just get a new player and just look at the same level, if not better than they were.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to another game though that's really important. So this is another one, middle of the pack. Middle of the pack in EMEA to me is the most interesting part. That's why we're focusing on it. It's Vitality against Karmine Corp. This one's huge.
Are we all going for the same?
All Vitality.
They scraped that win as well.
Man, this feels like overrating Vitality a bit, right? I'm not sure I feel this confident about Vitality as well.
But
I'm not confident about Karmine Corp.
That's exactly how I
know.
Yeah, I can't even, like, normally I try and persuade like someone, but man, you can't really go for K-Corp after watching them the past 2 weeks in a row. It
has been bad.
Yeah, you would have had to have not watched the last 2 weeks to predict them in my books. It's just been bad. Like, it's been straight up bad.
What's the chances of a rebound then? Like, if they rebounded and they won, how ridiculous is that they've been able to do it? Because they have played at a top level at some point this year.
They can rebound for sure. I mean, the aimers on KC, Narrate. I mean, Narrate was at one point probably the best player in our region, and he's not even from our region. So, it can definitely happen. But I just see like Safe kind of did the same as he did on, I think he did the same on Liquid last year, where he starts on not the duelist and say, I don't want to play it, and then it doesn't go that well. Okay, I will play it. I will take it in my own hands, and they do good. And then this year, it's kind of the same. I don't want to play duelist, and then after the year, okay, I need to step up and take it and just owning.
Looks like the best duelist.
Yeah.
Solo wins
world,
multiple rounds, 4 aces or something crazy.
So for that reason, I think Vitality has it just because of Safe, but I mean it's close for me. It's like a 49 to 51 maybe. Okay, maybe not that, but it's close. I want to be as nice as possible,
Okay. Well, let's move on to our final prediction then, so that you can be really, really nice, because it's NAVI playing against Gentlemates. We've already talked about how important this one is for NAVI. And only one of us going for Gentlemates, the other 3 for NAVI, despite the fact that NAVI have been playing some pretty rough Valorant recently. Gentlemates, I want to give Bren the floor because he's actually predded the French Ascension team. What is this pick based off?
It's based on them being boomed, I think, and just not being. They don't. I feel like they don't have anybody to dig them out of the hole, and like I said, see the bigger picture that they can still have a chance. Because it all just comes back to what I was talking about with pro players. You kind of every pro player, I think, that's worth their salt will take it one game at a time, one step at a time, and only look at the next game ahead. And then because of that, they end up honing in super hard on each loss that came before it. Like it's like, okay, well, we're losing, we're slumping, and just getting into that negative mentality. And it just feels like they don't have anybody to pull them out of it right now. Which, for whatever reason, listen, we can't go into it, but yeah, I just feel like it's a tragic series of events that's occurred for this team currently, and it's not that I think Gentlemates had a better team overall, but I think that this is a prime time for them to just take a win versus them.
Yeah. I think that's extremely valid. Pretty much as well, because I'm kind of struggling to see like who is going to step up to the plate and take them out. But at the same day, that they're all, this is the thing, they're all pro players. It's like when you look at a game and someone's had like a really bad game, but it gets to overtime. It's like it's a straight up reset. It doesn't matter that you've had a bad game. You can now win the game just from this one round, and that's like the same mental they should have. It's pretty much what you guys were talking about earlier. It's like just offer them this spot like at the beginning of the year and go, well, you have to beat Gentlemates to get to playoffs. So like most people would be like, yeah, that sounds good. We'll take that. But I think that's like definitely the mental that they need to approach it with. But I agree with Brent. It's like who's actually gonna tell them that and for them to like absorb that information and believe it.
I mean, in my experience with my roster, I think once it has to happen, we have to win one map. It just has to happen, We can't just not win a map. And as soon as we win a map, I think there's going to be a switch in our heads where we're going to remember, who we are and what we can do. And I think if we win one map against M8, it's going to be a blowout. That's what I'm thinking, So
it's 0-2 or 2-0 or.
Yeah, basically.
1-2 maybe.
Or 2-1 where you win the second map, I suppose.
No, that's really what I think, because I know the guys, and I know like once they get a taste for a win, and once they get the confidence that hey, we can actually do this, I think it could even be the start of a major run in the playoffs. Like I really think so. So that's not just me with PR talking. That's actually me thinking this, So, yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't quite believe you, but we will come back to this if Navi do go on a run, and we'll hail you as a genius. And speaking of people that we either need to hail as geniuses or commission formal apologies to, it's time to move on to Americas, and I wanted to open this up by just straight up apologizing to Dryad, who believed in Leviathan, and we clowned on her. Lev was so shit at Shanghai, especially that game against Foot. Yeah, I think it actually warped my reality, and I forgot that sometimes teams can get better. I straight up thought they were just dead. Like I just couldn't see a way back for them, and they immediately came back, and they look great.
she has no clouded vision as well, because she said that Navi was going to lose as well. She was like, "There's no way
True.
that Navi are going to beat Giants."
Yeah.
She actually got everything right. We're all clouded by like the past. She's just focused on the now. It's
The
crazy.
mad part is, though, Navi have been good in the past, and then she watched the game and then playing and was like, somehow in that bad game, could tell that it was going to continue. Whereas we watch the bad game of Lev and we're like, surely it's going to continue, and then it doesn't. She's just a genius. I don't know. There's no way around it.
Yeah, she owned it.
I mean, how has this team recovered? They're 6-0 in maps since they had some of the most shocking performances I've ever seen from a top team at Shanghai.
I don't
How have
know.
they recovered?
I'm convinced that there was like there was some sort of brain mold in the walls of Shanghai that was affecting the individual play of a lot of the players on Lev, because there were some moments where King might have put money on the game to have a certain amount of deaths by a certain amount of time. And just with some of the plays, like I genuinely couldn't comprehend some of the stuff that I was seeing at Shanghai. So the bounce back is incredible. It's actually insane. It's actual insanity. But the team is they've completely changed, man. They're all on the same page. And I thought this occurred. I remember in stage 1, Con was doing an interview where it was like, yeah, we all had to sit down. Yeah. And this is when they were going on their string of wins against a lot of the top teams in Americans in stage 1. It was like, we had to sit down. We talked about what we really, what our vision for the game was and everything else. And then they get to Shanghai, and it's like, oh my god, this team is awful. Like they've exploded.
But it wasn't
internally.
just at Shanghai. It was also like during the stage 1 playoffs, you already saw massive cracks in what should be basic post-plant play. That was already like alarm bells starting to ring.
Now they're right up there again, I think, in terms of their play. It really helps that they have an incredible read on Haven as a map that's come back in. And it's not necessarily an incredible read. I think they're playing it in a very good way. They just have very good standard plans around it. When I was supposed to be on the desk one of the days, I wanted to pull up one of the bonus rounds that they did on Haven, which is just basic ideas like, obviously you go for like a bonus A lobby crunch, right? But instead of the usual play where you just dump all of your utility in the first minute mark, or when the seconds go down and the barrier's down, they made it feel like it was just a Sova alone, waited 3 seconds for acknowledgement, like the dart getting broken or revealed, and then hit them with the second wave of util, like afterwards. Like the tiny little micro things that they're doing differently, because like it's just one of the most foundational things is just being able to fight for a lobby control as part of one of your protocols on defense. And it was just that little thing that they added in that demolished the team that they're playing against, which I can't even remember who it was at this point, but they I think that they've just got very good, clear ideas, and whether that's come about with them removing their head coach, I don't know. Don't know why that would ever be like a thing that potentially impeded them in the past from even having those ideas. Like why is it that that's giving the reins to the assistant coaches now allowed for that? But yeah, was this around here? No, it was a different one. It was on the bonus, but it's besides the point. It must have been in a previous game that I'm remembering anyway. I'm sorry, I didn't pull up clips. I'm a bad podcaster, but yeah, I think they just all of those elements coming together. Genuinely, I would love to be a fly on the wall to find out what the fuck's happened to this team.
Well, they were saying that it was like a lot to do with Itapara as well and changing up their style. Dryad was also saying that she had spoken to the team and they were going to try to let some players off the leash a little bit. And just reading between the lines, it feels like Mazzino is playing way more like a loose style than he previously did. And it seems like it's really working for him. Mazzino and King are like 2 of the highest rated players at the moment in Americas.
I think that was the main thing. Like them in split 1, they were like insane. Like Mazzino was fragging unbelievably high. And yeah, they have like the opposite effect of what Navi had, right? So they kicked their coach, and Navi went on just the lost streak, and now these guys have had the opposite. So I guess that's what Navi were going for. It didn't really work out like this. But I will say that I just think all of the Lev players are really stepping up. Like it seems like the mental. I was actually calling them out for not having many vibes, but when I'm actually watching them, they actually like seemed really pumped up, and they like actually have like good motivation. And I feel like the rounds that they're playing is so nice. They're playing off each other really well. Like the teamwork's good, and I just think like a big, not even a step up from Tex, because I honestly believe the Shanghai Tex had like one of the better performances that I've seen from him individually. But now he just looks unreal. Like he's winning just every duel. He keeps getting like one more than in my mind he should be getting. So yeah, I think just on an individual level, everyone looks way happier and is fragging to like their actual potential. They might be peaking at a really good moment here as well.
I think they're an example
Oh,
of a
sorry.
team where they just sacrificed the coach, threw him off the cliff, and just like, you know, actual scapegoat. Like, we put all of our sins into this man, and then they toss him into the ocean, and they're like, we are cleansed, and they can go back to their happy vibes because they feel like it's a brand new, fresh start kind of thing.
I just want to say, I think Sliggy touched on something really important. Is like if a vibe, it sounds so stupid to say, but if the vibes are there and you're happy and you're willing to play proper Valorant for each other, that's kind of how you win. And I imagine maybe in this case also, like you said, you know, having that scapegoat or changing the dynamic in the team, like off server and on server, is gonna like allow for that, you know. And if you're happier, if you're vibing more, if you're feeling good, like automatically you're just gonna play better off each other, have better refrags, have better fundamentals. So I think that's just a really important part of a team playing good. So if you see them smiling on stage, you know, we're gonna win.
Okay, well, we've commissioned our formal apology to Dryad. I hope she accepts. So once this clutch has been secured here, we'll move on to talking about NRG. Soak in the good play on Sunset for a moment, because you're about to witness something quite different. 12-9. Well, surely Leviathan closed this one out. How would a team fail to close out a lead such as this? But yeah, the NRG loss to C9 was historic. I mean, that's a generational throw. They were 12-5 up, and they end up missing out on playoffs because of this. They had a tight win over Crew, squandered it because of their loss in this game. I wanted to start with a Finesse tweet. Finesse, again, had another interview with Pedro Romero where he said, "We played our best today on stage." He said, "We genuinely played better than we did in the game against Crew. We just failed to close out the game properly." But he said, despite that, despite thinking that they played some of the best Valorant they have done this year, they still didn't deserve to make playoffs. So in his head, they're like, they were playing at their peak, but even their peak wasn't good enough to be able to make playoffs. And obviously, he's excluding the 7-9 rounds in a row that they lost in order to lose the map, where he said that they didn't make adjustments fast enough. But I kind of got that feeling. Like, I think I'm on board with that. They played some good Valorant up until the point where they didn't.
No, yeah, I agree. I mean, they were showing good signs. It was like the whole thing this year was really good attack, bad defense. Like that. Well, I say this year since
when
they kind of
Finesse came in, right?
Yeah, when FNS and some came in, it was like their attacks looks top tier. Like their attacks were great, but when it came to their defense, it was like this. It was like slow adaptation, sometimes misuse of ults, sometimes saving ults when you shouldn't, and some of like the team cohesion maybe wasn't there. So that's like the big factor of it. But dude, you even look into like, if we're focusing on the positives, like the attack stuff is cool. They're like having like layers on their B hit. Really early on against C9 on this, where they went over towards B on Sunset, they like played on site in the after plant, and you could see how C9 were working. Like obviously in the other game against Sentinels, they must have played off site every single time on B. So C9 are prepping, thinking they're playing off site, and actually they're playing on site. So they're using no util running in, and all the utils already going into B main where no one is. And then later they started just falling back into B main once C9 thought they were on site and started using a lot of util on site. So they kind of won a lot of the mind games when it came to attacking. I could see a lot of like the game plans and like the theory, and it was just really cool to watch. It was just like, damn, like I missed watching this kind of stuff. And then the defense happens, and there's just a couple of misplays massively.
I mean, you said focus on the positives. Sorry. We're gonna get some amazing co-streams. That's great.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah. I mean, just on a general. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't watch this one either. It's NA, so I don't watch it. But as a general thing, you know, an ideal coming in, it's always easier to fix your attacking side than it is to fix your defense side when you have new players. Because attacking side is more about the IGL, the plan, the calling, the dry rounds, stuff like this. And defense is much more about, you know, how is the team playing, the communication between players working when you're playing this side, you know, how are we gelling, how are we playing off each other, and this stuff takes longer to develop, I would say. So that's just my theory, but bringing FNS and having this change, I think it's always going to give a boost on the attacking side. But yeah, you know, this team play and the actual, you know, them having to improvise together will be a little bit weaker on the defense as a general rule. But that's just my feeling and what could happen.
I mean, I hard agree with that. I think this team, it's astounding they did as well as they did, considering the circumstances that went on, because they not only did they have to rebuild up the structure, the game plans on Haven as a map coming in, right? With 2 new players coming in. And I was always under the impression that they should have been good at this map because they were just playing old standard comp. But I think they took a risk experimenting with their Haven comp on a map that had just come in when I thought it should have been quite good for them. And the comp was ass. Like, fundamentally, it was just ass. They didn't have a standard Sentinel to hold passive map control on the defense half of Haven, and it's one of the biggest maps in the game. You need some level of passive map control. You can't spread 5 players.
Doombro's emo of just, huh? What am I looking at here?
You can't spread 5 players across the map on Haven, and unless you have good ideas of how you want to aggressively take map control on the defense so that you have that mid-round information to work off of. They were working in the dark. They were literally like intentionally nerfing themselves with Fog of War by not running a standard Sentinel. And that number one is a backbreaker on a map that I thought fundamentally should have been quite good for NRG. They fixed the attack sides, but it's always going to be a mad scramble to try and improve the defensive halves on almost every map when you bring in new players. And also, fundamentally, it just probably comes down to the fact that their roles are a bit fucked. Like, they don't have a good standard duelist player. Like, Victor has been stepping up, don't get me wrong, on like Jet and whatnot when he was into that position. But it's clear that they looked at the roles and decided, like, Ethan on Yoru, it's a role that he has played in the past before. He'll be that factor for us. He can still support people and set us up with flashes, but he can, he's a fantastic player, so he can step into that. But genuinely, it's amazing that they did as well as they did. And I was saying for the longest time, even... Dude, we were like in week 2 of stage 2. I was on the desk or something, and I was like, dude, this team should just give up and just focus on long term for next year. Like, I know they still have a chance in playoffs, but the odds are so low of them making it. Of course, they're going to still go for it. But I'm like, I hope that the org made this roster decision by putting in Finesse and Som, by saying to them, guys, we're going to build long-term focus to try and win for next year. This isn't just a panic button hit and we're trying to make playoffs and trying to make champs. There's no way we make a decision as an org like that and hit the panic button midway through. Of course we know what's going on, but it feels like they might have done that. But I was saying for the longest time that they should have just built long-term focus with this change and switch up. But yeah, for the fact that they even almost had a chance of making playoffs is astounding to me.
I think they did all right. I think they did all right. I think astounding, also, I would say, for like actually running at, like doing a good run towards the end. Another
little bit of glazing to throw in to just mix this up as well. Sorry, I didn't add this in. They had 3 matches to prep for in a week.
Yeah.
Even a team that has clear game plans isn't going to be able to do that. Like, they don't even know what they were doing on half the maps. Like, genuinely, this team was chalked from the beginning. They were chalked, man. They were set up to lose. Sorry, you can go ahead. I didn't mean to.
No, I agree with you. I agree with everything you're saying. The expectations should have been super low once they realized that the initial roster already failed. You can criticize them for the initial roster, and you can, criticize the general idea for NRG and talk about what they want to do next year. But yeah, they weren't really supposed to do much with adding Finesse and Som back in. It was a Hail Mary. They do have both of those guys on 2025 contracts. So that doesn't really mean that they're going to keep them for 2025, but it means that they have the option to do so, depending on the details there. But in theory, they have them.
I think there's good signs there. There's like good signs that you can build on for next year. It was just kind of like what like all of us were saying. There was just little things that they just kind of seeped through, and it's pretty much just a time thing. Like their ult usage. If you go down to this 12-5 lead, I give you a clip. It's pretty much when you're 12-5 down. A lot of the time, what you're gonna do is you're just gonna make sure you save up all your ults, and you can just win that round. And there was so many times when I watched NRG and I was just like, where is the good ult usage here? I saw it on 2 rounds against NRG when they were playing Sentinels as well. So it could have been way better where it's that they don't they're not snowballing properly. Teams have really perfected this thing, and maybe this is like that kind of them showing that they're a little bit outdated of being away for so long, because the meta does kind of move pretty fast. And like this is another one where it's like this is the bonus or the first buy, I can't remember, but we have Crashy's ult and attack here, and normally you would use this ult, you break the economy, and then you can kind of just get off to a good snowball round in your back in, and Crashy's is the first one to go down over towards door against Sentinels NRG, and it happened on their defense as well. Same thing, they won double pistol. It was like the big buy round, and Crashies goes down, and it's just that kind of stuff. Teams don't do that anymore. Like, you can't be caught doing that. It's all about protect. This guy's the VIP right here. This is the ult that we need to protect to make sure we snowball. Yeah, this is the one where they didn't proper protect Crashies. Again, another round,
this
3v4 that would put them down. And these rounds where they have this ult, they got to play more around that ult. You got to be like much more emphasis on this is how we win this round. This is the thing that we win this round. And this is like 3 examples over the space of obviously like 3 weeks where that just needs to be better. And I think this, on top of the fact that their defense halves were a little bit rough, was like one of the main reasons why they didn't make it.
Finesse said in an interview, the one that I was referencing earlier, that a lot of the times in the VOD review, they would figure out something, but they would all be sat there together and be like, why didn't we think of that in the moment? And I think the reason is that they just hadn't done enough scrims, hadn't done enough reps to take what they know and make it something that they can immediately think of in the moment. They have the knowledge, they're good players, but they didn't have the reps to be able to play at their best. And depending on what the rebuild looks like over the offseason, I mean, they might be put in a bad situation again. Who the hell knows? I do want to move on, though, because we're starting to run out of time. I want to talk about 100 Thieves. We're going to give them their time in the sun. 100 Thieves, they won against EG to make the final playoff spot happen as well. This was a cool game. I mean, final game of the week. 1 match day. Still had a big crowd turnout because it was really important. And both teams looked like they had a chance. I think the majority of the talent actually predicted EG to win the game, which I was surprised at. But 100 Thieves have been in a bit of a slump recently. Individually, I feel, and I felt much better about Cryo in particular, but I mean, like, what Asuna was doing on Lotus was absolutely bonkers, and the whole team was getting some much bigger performances out of people in this game than they have done recently.
Yeah, it was a cool game to watch, especially the first map of Lotus was sick. I do just want to take like 2 seconds to just kind of think about just how good EU is. Like, I think EU is playing insane right now, even with the whole year consistently. This guy doesn't get talked about enough. He's playing so well. He wins so many rounds. His util is unbelievable. But that being said, the main thing that I actually wanted to talk about is because I think Lotus was the most important map, and we had a bit of like a coach off, right? Potter against Zix, obviously both used to be in the same team, and in my mind on Lotus, Zix was like the big reason they won. He calls a timeout, and he calls they were getting out over towards A aggro, and basically they get close and they drop the wall, and then they just all duel over towards where someone is over towards door. I'd never really seen that before. I thought that was like a pretty cool. Instead of doing a punish over towards rubble where you'd use util, it was like they were actually just dropping the wall and everyone's dueling over towards A. And then you had this other one as well where he called a timeout and they had 3 people over towards C. They realized they had taken C control, and the whole plan was everyone get over towards C. We're going to have 3 people facing, and then we're just going to drop the wall and duel them all. And both of them were back to back.
It was this round, wasn't it?
Yeah, it might be where they stack 3 people here and then drop the wall. I think the fade goes over at one point.
Yeah, is it the first time you see this?
No, but I'm saying it's not that it's more that they do something that isn't usual. Like normally 100 Thieves are just like so scripted of, oh, we got to use util to peek like this, and it was the fact that they've never really done this kind of stuff that just made me just like love it. I think this might be the round. I think this way he's walking over here.
But honestly,
the higher setup.
It really isn't common for teams to go for this. Like normally there's going to be like a horn or a stun or something like that. Like some big util is involved in it. It's pretty unusual, I feel, to just see a team straight up drop orb and try to catch the timing on the team without
maybe
anything.
Maybe I'm a little bit biased because we play Scream so much, but it's actually one of the things I have in my mind as a good coach when I play them on Lotus is if we take a timeout and we do this A punish either with utility or just dropping the wall and stuff like this. Like usually that's my my telltale sign that okay, this coach knows what he's doing. They have a deep deep playbook, and you can adapt on the fly because, like you said, Sliggy, like plays like this, even just like having the presence of mind, like okay, don't reveal what we're doing, just drop the stuff and just dry fight them. You're gonna win. Like that level of depth in the moment when you're playing a match it's just really impressive, So it's actually something I thought about a lot because I've been in that position where we were in a timeout and the other coach called almost exactly this. I think it was against Vitality, and it's just a very good call.
For 100 Thieves, though, they did end up losing on bind, and that's now 3 bind games in a row that they've lost after being considered the best team in the world there. Is that going to be too much of a hindrance for them to actually make some kind of run at champions, even if their players got back into form?
No. I don't think so. I mean, okay, I'll let the experts talk after me, but for me, the bind comp they have just makes sense on a lot of levels, and the fact that people are copying it. I think we're running the Gecko and the Fade, right? And I just think that combination of, I mean, I was in Anders' stream the other day, and he also confirmed it, and I trust Anders. He's like the smartest guy I know, So, this comp for me is really good, and you can have slumps, you can lose games. I watched their match history, and for me, it doesn't really look too bad.
They've also got a bit of a target on their back because they were just dominating on that map.
And, everyone figures them out, right? So,
but they haven't really done too much to change what they've been doing since Shanghai, I feel.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think it's hard as well because you kind of, when you got a map that's so good, you kind of, it can get neglected and you can focus on your other maps because in theory everyone kind of fears you on that. The one thing that I will say that I would like to see from them, I feel like they have they're not that proactive on their defense. Like the only time I see them being proactive, at least in this game, was when they took like long B and then they used Asina's ult to kind of kill them. That was like the only time where I was like they've been proactive. Other than that, it was a very, very passive defense, and they just let EG have so much space in the comp that wants to burst exec on you. But like my main stuff with that is I get that the combos work really well, but I would like to see them on bind on defense take way more risks. That's like where I'm at with it. I want them to be way more proactive. I think they're way too static, especially against comps that wanna burst exec.
But I think that's the good thing about it. If it can be fixed by adding stuff or changing your playstyle, it's good. It's a good sign. If you don't have these fixes, then it's a bad sign. But I agree with you. If the only thing we need to do is add some aggression, add some more dynamic plays into the playbook, then it's good. And the second thing is I like Chrysos being on not a duelist, being on the smoker. I think he's doing a really good job there, and Asuna on the race. I remember back in the days when Cry used to play a lot of chamber, and I never thought he was the aggressive guy that will go in and create a lot of space. So for me, I just like every time 100 Thieves plays Cry on a more EMEA static agent, and Asuna on the more crazy one who just goes in and wiggles the same all around, right?
Yeah, it was good to see Cryo have a resurgence as well. He was a bottom 10 player by the numbers before this game in Stage 2. Like, huge fall off compared to being easily the best player on 100 Thieves in Stage 1. Don't know exactly why he was in a bit of a slump, but hopefully he's on his way out of it and they can perform in the playoffs because they've now secured their spot. Let's move on to talking about the top of the pack, though, just for a second. Sentinels, G2. Who would you take as the favorites in Americas right now? Or are you going to throw in Leviathan as a wildcard pick?
Dude, this one's hard. Like, what do you even say about that? I feel like we haven't seen maybe enough of Sentinels for me to feel super confident picking them, but at the same time, I would probably pick them just because I think the G2 have maybe shown so much, and Sentinels have had that time off, so they should be kind of on the upward trajectory. That's pretty much where I view it, of just that time off can be so important. And even though G2 don't really look like they're burnout or anything like that, I think just having the constant playing from Shanghai will have a little bit of an effect. But when I look at these two back to back and you have a heads up, this is a 50-50. It really is.
I mean, they're playing each other this week.
It's Sen.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
You're going to continue to underrate G2?
I'm not underrating G2. I think G2 are the second best team in NA. I would have
Underrating Leviathan. Crazy.
Lev third. Yeah, I am underrating Lev because they, as much as I was talking up Lev, I just think, I don't know, if they've had that resurgence in stage 1 already, where they've already got onto the same page and they've had it again already, they feel like they've shown consistency. I'm not going to doubt them in that regard. I'm hoping that it will just keep going, but yeah, I think in terms of just like the spread of strengths, G2, their discipline, their team play, and Valent's calling and fragging, it's so everybody's sharing everyone's sharing the weight of this team, the weight of responsibility. They don't really have heavy hitters. They don't need to lean on heavy hitters as much, which I think is credit to the coaching staff.
Sen have a bunch though,
and Sen have a lot of firepower, and I think they have the same qualities. That's the difference. I think they have the same level of discipline. They have the same level of understanding of when to be on the same page with a call, just in the mid-round adaptations that anybody could make, which is just evident from their split. That's the only downside, is that as we get deeper into the playoffs, is that their split's going to be gone, which is brutal for them, but it was always a map that they already had a target on their back anyway. Almost very similar to what we were just talking about with 100 Thieves on Bind. So genuinely, they haven't been putting much work into that map. The adjustments and micro adjustments that they were even doing in the first place on that map to make them the best in the world got nerfed, which was like a lot of the Viper Orb repositioning and a lot of the really interesting stuff like that. So I think it's a map that they were neglecting anyway, and they haven't been looking at it for long-term focus. They're not leaning on it for wins still. They are looking to shore up their map pool ahead of time. That's what it looks like to me.
It's going to be so interesting when we get this potential matchup in playoffs, because when Abyss is in there, both of these teams have a permaban. I mean, Sen have not been playing Icebox, but they actually looked all right on Icebox when we saw them. But G2 just don't play Sunset. Like, they just don't, right? Have they actually played it, like, at all? They must have done, because they must have played it in, like, the finals against 100 Thieves.
At least, like, before Shanghai onwards, they haven't. So it's been at least a while.
Yeah, I think it was straight up the America's Grand Finals where they were forced to play it because of the double map ban.
Bracket,
yeah, so it's that game there where, yeah. But I mean, apart from this, they just don't play it. So I'm going to be so interested, like, who chickens out and ends up banning Abyss rather than having to, ban their permaban.
I mean, for me, like, the big thing about Sentinels is, I remember Tennis having a lot of question marks in the middle of his career, but I just think now, at least from the outside, Tennis is looking like the best Omen in the world, sometimes the best player in the world. And when I look at the roster, they don't really have any holes, And for me, that's just a sign of a good roster. Like, they have like one of a fragging IGL that actually calls really good. They still have Kaplan, I hope, after the of this. Yeah, they still have Kaplan, which is, for me, like, the guy is a genius, right? And we have second, like, the young gun versus.
He's so good.
Yeah, he's so good. So for me, like, when I watch them play, I can see that they are on one level above a lot of their opponents. We used to in NAVI, we used to watch Party and just watch the NA matches a lot. And every time we watch Sentinels, this is just on another level. They're really good, and we could even take some stuff from them that they were doing and incorporate it into our stuff, and actually learn something and see something new. So for me, I have a lot of confidence in them, and I think the reason they didn't win or be on the previous major was just because of the format. They played a lot and all this stuff, But for me, they're my favorites in the region.
Well, let's move on from Sentinels then, who, you're right, were at that first Masters, to another team that was at the first Masters, who don't look like they're. I mean, they can't make it to another one, let's be real, but they don't look like they would, even if there were 3 more Masters for the rest of the year. Loud ended up losing out on their playoffs position, and they also lost their first ever Brazilian rivalry game. They were 25-0. They had never even lost a map to Furia, I believe, before this match, and they ended up losing it 2-1, so their record's 25-1 now, which sounds like an amazing record, but the performances recently from Loud are not inspiring confidence, and I think we might be at the end of the era. I think we're straight up at the end of this version of Sadak trying to take Loud and tweak a couple of players and make them into a top level team.
Yeah,
It feels like they've hit the limit.
What you mean, like from the perspective of like what fatigue with the org, like in terms of the decisions that the org's making?
I think some of that, but also some of Sadak just being better than having to try to... Like, Sadak got massive props this year for getting his team to the first Masters event. That was the level that he was at. He went from being a champion, winning champs, and having a Brazilian super team, to being given props as being called the best IGL in the game just for getting his team to the event and didn't have expectations. And now he's getting enormous amounts of hatred from the fans because he's failed to get his team to playoffs, despite the fact that everybody agreed the reason why it was so spectacular he even got them there in the first place was because he keeps getting a worse and worse level of people to work with. And he had to begin this year trying to create a whole different system where he didn't have a star player on Duelist to build around. He still has a star player. Les is still a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
But
it's like
it feels like the end to me.
Yeah, he kept him performing miracles, and then now they're all just like, "Wait, you did do another miracle?" Like,
yeah, they're stoning him,
bro.
They're stoning him in the middle of the fucking
much.
town square. They're like, damn you, miracle worker! Make more food out of the bread and fishes."
Yeah, it's a little bit harsh. I think that the individuals don't look bad, but the chemistry in the team is not there. Like, I'm watching a lot of their retakes on Lotus, Pancada's Flash. He's either like disattached so far away that they're having to exec the retake before he's even there to use the Flash, and like the Omen Flash is the most important bit, or he's using the Flash a little bit too freely, and it just looks like there is a disconnect there, even though Pancada individually looks insane. And honestly, a lot of the players individually look insane. That's the only reason that I feel like they're in a lot of these games is because some individual has got like a 2K or a 3K or got the most important, like won the most important duel of the round. So yeah, it just looks like a bit of a lack of time and having to switch around roles, and maybe calling on duelist is pretty hard.
Yeah,
that's what it feels.
But even
this is also, I'm just going to say this is I don't want to pin all the blame on this, but I think it's a fundamental problem that EMEA, teams in Turkey can still scrim in tier 2, even if they're playing from Berlin. In Pacific, they can all play around Southeast Asia to East Asia with around 70 ping max, maybe more. The difference between the South American teams and North American teams is outrageous. They can't. They're in a bubble. They're in a vacuum. And I think this is a wider symptom of the fact that you're seeing players being kind of recycled that we've seen before on Furia, on Loud, where Pancada's coming back in, of course, because they have so many fundamental problems just trying to get new players in, and also they're probably out of the loop in terms of what talent to bring up as well. I think that the scene overall is going to be suffering, and this is just the first part of it, and you're probably going to see it continue, where you might just see these teams just end up again recycling the same players, and not bringing in any new blood. I could be wrong with that. The scouting could be better, but ultimately the region isn't even going to be as developed as well when you don't have heavy hitters like Loud to pave the way for the other teams to even learn off and improve off, because I think it's an issue with the fact that we've combined Americas. It wouldn't be an issue if geographically we were closer. I don't think it would be a problem.
Let's just
at all.
move the continents together.
Yeah,
Revive Pangea.
Exactly,
Let's have the Pangea VCT League.
Yeah, we need to host it, like create an island nation in the middle of the Pacific and just move it all there. Like it's not
Tonga
possible.
Tonga
It's not
VCT
feasible.
Tuvalu. We've already got the .tv. It could
Yeah.
be VCT.tv. We can all move to Tuvalu.
It's just not feasible. So this is an issue that I think will keep cropping up, and Loud. It's also partly, I think, on the org's end, because Sadak has definitely come out being like, I'm giving it all to the coaches. Like, I'm handing off the reins. The coaches have all the say.
Yeah.
And there's been that frustration with the org in terms of, I suppose, like just the player options and disagreements. It really does feel like the beginning of the end, unfortunately. And I feel sorry for the region overall as well, because they've just been so used to winning, and I feel like they are not going to be set up to succeed any longer, just because of the nature of everything. That's the way that the Americas is set up.
Yeah. Loud also said very publicly in previous off seasons that they are not willing to throw the bag to keep like super teams alive. That's why, Sassy, Pancada ended up heading away previously, Aspas, for example. So yeah, the brain drain is real over in Brazil by the look of things, but I'd like to see when things calm down a little bit and the emotional reaction from the fans settles down. I wonder what people's genuine feeling about how Loud performed this year is going to be within the Brazilian scene, because at the moment they seem vitriolic, and that to me seems a little bit merciless when you consider what cards they were dealt and how they managed actually to get to one of the tournaments where there was only a couple of teams that ended up even representing America. But it is our final 9 minutes, so I do want to kind of move the ship along and head into predictions here. We had originally wanted to talk about crew, but I want to make sure that everybody gets away to things that they're doing. So we'll have time to talk crew next week as well. They're in playoffs, so it's all good. Let's talk first prediction. This is really the only game that matters next week in Americas. It's mostly kind of a lot of bullshit. It's the final game of the week. It's Sentinels playing against G2. It's only me going with G2.
I'm so
Everybody
glad
else is with Sentinels.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's 50-50.
I can explain my pick.
Go on.
No, it's I looked at the map picks and I was thinking, Split is gonna be a decisive map. Is G2 is playing our comp and the Sentinels is playing the comp that like we struggle with. And then I just remembered, I went into Sliggy stream. I thought Icebox was getting removed. The Split is getting removed. So yeah.
Only for playoffs though. They still will have split.
Then the point still stands. No, I watched Split and I think if G2 let's split through, I think it can be hard because of the way Sentinel plays this map and like just fundamentally how you play the macro game is going to be really hard to play against with the comp that G2 is running. I think a lot is going to come down to just a good map veto. Apart from that, I just think Sentinels because they have Tenets and Kaplan, and I'm kind of a big fan. Yeah, that's where my analysis ends.
That's very reasonable. I mean, this game is so important as well because it decides who gets the second seed, and the second seed is only one match win away from making it to champs. And I think if Sen win this, they're guaranteed anyway because they by losing, somebody else would be forced to. Dude, I can't even. Yeah, or something to do with champs points. I straight up hate
because if they won it, then they would get a point for winning, and then they would also get a point because they get the bye.
Yes,
right.
Yeah,
and then so they would then
they would then be ahead of Leviathan. Yeah,
and 100 Thieves.
Yeah, and 100 Thieves as well. Okay, so assuming that that's true, and I don't care if it's not. Yeah, I went with G2 just because I feel like they've been extraordinarily consistent over the recent past. Even though they drop a couple of maps in bad fashion, they are always extremely tenacious at digging themselves back into the series. Valen's calling, I think, is better than John's at the moment, which is a high bar to clear because John's really damn good. And I think that their team play is as good as when Sen were at their best, but I think it's better than Sen currently. That's what I'm banking on, is that they're going to be able to stop Zekken from running all over them, basically, because I do think that gap between Zekken and Icy is phenomenal, to be honest, and I don't mean that in a bad way for Icy. Zekken is just that guy. He gaps almost everybody.
Yeah.
But as for the other games, the reason why I said it's a lot of bullshit is because it really doesn't seem to matter that much whether you finish 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th. And one of the games that's early on in the week that defines some of the seeding between potential 3rd to 5th is our next match coming up that we're going to predict, which is Cloud9 playing against Crew. Both teams that have been in a slump recently. And 3 of us have gone with Crew, apart from Doom Bros, who's gone with Cloud9. But to be honest with you, you're not getting exposed here. I think both were quite reasonable. I'm glad we didn't guarantee a Crew victory.
I think that, honestly, Cloud9 might have more of a chance, to be honest, because Cloud9 are a very inconsistent team, and you don't really know what to get from them. But they did finally get a win on the board against a team that wasn't just completely shitting the bed in the form of NRG. And they did make a very good comeback happen. So they might just find that perfect form again just in time for the playoffs. And this game doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have much implication because the only game that shifts the 2 to 3 spot, Lev have already locked in top 2 no matter what, right? The only game that matters is that Sen EG one. So everything else is just a mixture of who plays who in terms
There's
of
actually a really funny situation where if Cloud9 win this game and they end up as the 3rd seed, they just for 100 Thieves to toss because they get an easier group with them playing against Cloud9 and one of Sen or G2. Now, there isn't a great reason to throw any of the games in Americas because the final game is Sen G2, and you don't know which team you're going to be facing, so you can't. Yeah. At no point do you know what the group is going to be determinedly. So the Sen G2 thing is still going to mix things up, but there is a weird scenario where if you really think Cloud9's bad, you could try to hunt for that group if you were 100 Thieves at the end of the.
Should I defend myself, or how is this format working? Yeah, so, no. So I went into VLR and I think crew had more red than C9. So
barely, mate, barely.
I mean, look.
I mean, that's hard to argue.
And also maybe because I haven't watched too much, but I remember every international tournament we went to as FPX. I think we almost always eliminate a crew, I think, in almost every international event. So maybe my thoughts are a little skewed on that, and I don't rate them too high. But I remember them being really, really good at some point. So
beginning of the year,
they were like one of the best, right? Somehow. But
they're on a 6-match loss streak at the moment, crew, which is rough, and they just kicked their IGL. Put an old IGL back in, and then Kesnit's calling defense sides, and MTA isn't really fragging, and they do look like they're slipping a bit.
I think they're slowly getting better. I think this comes down to the who wants it more factor, and I know how some of these NA players play on these games that don't fully matter. They're going to play crazy loose, and I feel like crew will just be more disciplined of it.
Yeah. Okay, then. Well, that's our predictions for Americas. The other games, you can tune into Sliggy's co-stream and you can find out what his predictions are there. So we'll move on to our final segment, the most important segment. Let's hear it. It's Wyatt's Weekly Award.
Ladies and gentlemen, theys and them, announcing this week's Wyatt's Weekly Award is the one, the only, Wyatt River! Thank you. And here is your Wyatt's Weekly Award winner.
That's so good.
Yeah, Wyatt was literally off camera just watching us do that as well. It's not like we had to fill in for somebody who was absent. In terms of a player I was really happy with what Jesse Vash was delivering this week, but then somebody clutched up at the final moment, and it was Doombros and Sliggy. We needed them in order to pop off for this episode. Appreciate it, because it was a bit awkward. We were talking about NAVI quite a bit as well, but thank you, Doombros. We'll get the tell-all from you later. We'll arrange a separate episode where you're able to leak everything, spill the juice everywhere. But no, thank you very much for coming on last minute, and thanks, Sliggy, for setting it up as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. This feels better than winning the Masters. This trophy means much more for me, so thank you. Always been a dream.
No problem whatsoever. That's another thing that you can lord over Emil, when you go back and have these dinners. I don't think he's ever won one, but,
no, he hasn't won anything special,
Oh my goodness.
Not like EMEA, no. Okay, well that does it. We're finishing right before one of the EMEA games, which is Foot playing against Giants, where Foot are probably going to be the favorites, but Sliggy's going over and co-streaming that, so you can hop over there. And that does it for us on episode 182. Thank you again, Doombros and Sliggy and Bren, for joining us, and we will see you next week, I believe, right? We'll be able to run an episode?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
We'll
okay.
try.
Well, and if we're not, whatever. Fuck you!